Hey guys, this is Dion here with your Guitar Academy, and in today's lesson we're going to learn how to play Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses. So let's start by talking about the tuning of this song. So this song is actually tuned down to E flat. So that means that the guitar is dropped. Standard tuning is normally in E, of course. And what happens is we tune down each string down a semitone. So the way that I've done it is on my pedal board, I can actually change the pitch of the guitar using a pitch block. The guitar is tuned to standard, but it's sounding out as E flat because of my pedal board. So that's one thing that you're going to want to do if you want to play along with the original, is to make sure that you're in E flat tuning, or if you've got a pitch shifter pedal like I've got. You can obviously play it in standard as well. It still sounds great. But yeah, the original's in E flat. So let's kick it off by starting from the top. Let's go through this intro part that's got that really cool kind of delay. So I haven't got the exact amount of repeats and the exact delay dialed in as they do on the record. I believe it was actually added in after the recording. So they recorded the guitar and then they added the delay in the mixing stage. But you know, any sort of fairly saturated delay sound is going to get you in the ballpark here. So this first part sounds something like this. So it's essentially just running down our B minor pentatonic scale. Let me clean up the sound a little bit and we'll talk about the notes. So we're starting on the 4th fret of G. We hit that one twice. Down to the 2nd fret of G. 4th fret of D. 2nd fret of D. Each of these notes is played twice. So. And this part here, you can either do an open D string, or you can play the 5th fret of A, which is what I prefer to do. Grab that with your 4th finger. Just one time on that note, and then onto the final note, which is the B note, the 2nd fret of the A string. So the whole thing goes. And you'll see I'm applying a kind of light palm mute there, so it doesn't have to be super muted, but just enough to kind of mute the notes a little bit. And this essentially kind of repeats throughout this intro as it's sort of building. You know, the other stuff comes in, the drums come in. This guitar part is staying consistent. That's actually one thing to mention with this tune, is that there's a hell of a lot of kind of layering of different guitar parts and lots of different things going on. So I'm essentially going to show you the sort of main parts within this lesson. So basically, if I was playing this song on a gig, these are the guitar parts that I would play. So yeah, that's our intro. And I'm playing it with downstrokes. You can do like down, up, like alternate picking if you want. I just prefer the sound of downstrokes for this. A bit more power. Okay, so what happens is, whilst that riff is going on, we've got this little... this really cool little lead part that comes in. And we're essentially in position 1 of B minor pentatonic here. So what happens here is we're sliding from fret 7 to 9 on the D string. Don't forget to add a nice bit of vibrato if you want. And then we're going on to the 7th fret of G. Then the 9th fret of G. And then we're going... So it's kind of like, it's kind of a semitone bend, so you don't want to bend too high. You don't want to bend up to there, we're just going... Get that nice blue note, so... And then bend up, release the bend, down to fret 7 on G, and then we slide again from 7 to 9 on D. Let that note sing, let it ring out for a bit, and then the 7th fret on A, so it just kind of repeats that idea, so... again. And obviously this is all the while we have our part happening as well. So as I said, lots of layering on this track. So that goes around a couple of times, we repeat it a few times, and then what happens is we build into the main kind of bit where the drums kick in, you know, that sort of main riff. So after a few repeats, we go. Okay, so what that was a nice open D chord. So I'm catching the A string there as well because I like the thickness that it adds to the chord. So you can just play, you know, that's just open D, 2nd fret of G, 3rd fret of D. You don't need to play the whole chord with that note on top, just there. And then when you add the A in, really nice and thick. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's now moving to the A chord there. I'm essentially playing an A power chord. So just open A, 2nd fret D, 2nd fret G. So 2, 3, 4. And then finally we build on this B power chord. So that's on the 2nd fret of the A string. And that's just nice consistent 8th notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So you see I'm gradually releasing the palm mute there as the drums are building on the track. Okay, so we're on to the main riff now, and we're making use of the A power chord here. So I'm going to kind of talk a bit about the strumming pattern as well as how we kind of articulate the sound to sound as close to the track as possible. Or should I say articulate our technique? It's kind of a bit vague how they kind of strum this throughout the song because it sort of changes and they're not going to be playing the same strumming pattern throughout. But kind of an approximation would be. So if I if I break that down rather, we have the A power chord, 1 and 2. So you see what I've done there is jump to the 3rd fret of the E string, my 2nd finger. Okay, and then after that, we want to hit it on the and, the A power chord on the and with an upstroke. So it's like 1 and 2 and it's actually the of the 16th note. So 1 E and 2 E and 3 E. So you got 2 upstrokes there. That's quite syncopated. Like that. Let me try it with some drums and you can kind of hear what it sounds like with some actual context. I'm going to go for, let's just do it 80 BPM. There we go. Cool, so. I'll just do the first part. So you hear we're going 1 and 2, and you hear those offbeats like that. And you'll notice with my picking hand, up, like that, okay? And then following on from there, we just simply go. So that's fret 3, 2, and then open on the low E string. So. And again, much like we do with pretty much all strumming, you'll see how my picking hand is staying consistently moving, and that's going to help keep us in time. So. So what happens here, before the verse comes in, got that really cool little bluesy lick, okay? So this is just position 1 of A minor pentatonic. So we're bending on the 7th fret of G, upper semitone, down to the 5th fret, so, and then 7, pull off to 5, down to 7 on D, and then 5th fret, double stop on the B and the E string, slide out, so. Really cool. So the full thing goes like this. Like so. You can get a pinch harmonic on it if you want as well. I think that's on the track. Don't have to, but it sounds quite cool. So onto the verse now. So essentially what happens is we're playing that same riff that we've just been playing, but now just with a bit of palm muting, so it sounds like this. So it does that a couple of times, and then we change chord. So now we're changing chord to this E power chord, but we're playing it on the 2nd fret of D, and then the 4th fret of G. And what happens is we basically do the same pattern now just for this new chord. Still palm muted. It sounds something like this. So I'm just going power chord, open D, 2nd fret of D, open D, 4th fret of A, 2nd fret of A. So again, a bit slower. So now the full thing, the 2 chords together, sounds something like this. And now onto the chorus. So let's talk through that part now. So we've got this kind of cool chromatic single note thing that's highlighting the movement of C chord to a D chord to an E, okay? So we start off on the A string, 3rd fret, 2nd fret, open, and then 3rd fret of G, of the low E string, sorry. That's the first part. And then we go 5th fret of A, 4th fret of A, back to 5, 6, end up on 7. So that full sequence goes. And then we have this cool. So I'm not entirely sure if originally they played that part down here. Maybe they do, it's the same notes. I just like to play it up in this position here, it just feels a bit more comfortable. So that part is something like this. We start on the 7th fret of A, twice, down to the 5th fret of A, 6 on E, 5 on E, 3 on E, open. So. And then repeats. And the chorus finishes by simply going like that. So you're kind of better off listening to the original track to pick up that rhythm perfectly, but the notes are exactly the same and it's kind of mimicking the rhythm of the drum. So then we repeat the verse and the chorus. The only difference is we finish the second chorus with a B chord to lead us into the guitar solo, okay? So I like to play a B power chord there. And again, you can listen to the track for the rhythm, but it goes something like so. So now it brings us to our first bit of lead for the song. So we've got this really cool short solo that is just vintage slash. It's so cool. It's kind of centered around blues scale with some double stops, but it's also got this flat 7 in it that's kind of implying this sort of dominant sound. So let's just take a look and see what's going on here. So that's the first part. It's these really, really cool little double stop ideas. So we're sliding, I'm using my 1st and 2nd fingers here. Sliding from the 11th fret of D and the 12th fret of G, up a semitone. And then we've got this kind of rhythmic. So it's like, so you see we've got 2 dead notes after the first double stop. Hear that? And all I'm doing is kind of like lifting the pressure off the strings and just hitting the strings like that. And then you see we hit it again twice on the offbeats. And then slide down again. Okay, and then we finish. So you see I've barred my 1st finger here, okay? And the final 2 notes of that little segment, the 13th fret of G and the 12th fret of B. So like so. And then what happens is, so we keep the same rhythm, exactly the same, but now we're up here. This is the 16th fret of G, 15th fret of B. So you see we're doing that semitone slide thing again, okay? And then 2 dead notes. And then we finish with that double stop on the 15th fret with B and the high E. So that whole thing sounds something like this. Cool. And then we've got this really cool lick next that sounds something like this. Now we're really high up for this lick, so we're sliding up to the 18th fret on the G, 17th fret on B, 19th fret on the high E, which we then immediately want to bend a tone and a half. So that's a tone, but it goes up to there. So that's essentially 3 frets worth of bend. Such a classic slash thing. And remember, with this bend, you want to make sure that your fingers are behind the 3rd finger here to support that movement, okay? So after we've bent, we go, we're releasing, moving down, sorry, from fret 19, 18 on the E, and then we land on 17, bend it up a tone, and then 15, 16, which is really cool. It's that kind of minor, major 3rd thing. And then to finish, the 15th fret of B. So that whole segment goes. And you'll notice Slash has got this really cool kind of like lazy feel with his timing on this. So don't be rushing it too much. You can kind of sit behind the beat a bit. For learning lead stuff like this, it's really best to just listen to how he does it and kind of try and mimic and play along as best you can. So, yeah. So let's do that again. And now we're moving on to a really, really classic Slash blues scale, like a descending blues scale lick as well. So this lick is this kind of descending blues scale thing that sounds something like this. I love the way it lands on the flat 7 there. So that's our kind of root note, but it's the way that it ends on that. It's just so bluesy. So we're essentially starting in position 1 of our E blues scale. So we start with a bend on the 15th fret of B. And then we come down. We're just descending down our blues scale. And then after the 15th fret there on G, we're doing a full tone bend on the 14th, release, and then play the 14th again. Work our way down the scale. So once there, we're on the A string, so 14, 13, 12, and then it's a little semitone bend on the A string, and then end on the 10th fret of the A string, and then finally, 9th fret, 8th fret, 7th fret on the G. So it's a bit of a finger twister, that one, and it's quite a hard one to get your head around, but I recommend just playing it super slowly a couple of times, like this. And then full speed. Like that. And again, Slash is really cool with his timing there. It's quite, like, not exactly pinned to the beat, and that's just his kind of signature thing. It just sounds super cool. So after that, we have another verse into another chorus, and the chorus ends like so. And then we're into a kind of bridge section where we've got a D moving to a G chord, and it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Repeats those chords a couple of times, and then we go. So I'm playing big bar chords here, and that's a G bar chord. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're into another kind of like, I guess it's a solo, not as kind of bold as the first solo, it's more of a kind of melodic part. So this part is Slash essentially kind of feeling around this chord progression and playing a few blues scale bits as well as a couple of melodic ideas. We're going to tackle a couple of the key ideas and the way that you can kind of create this solo yourself, or should I say improvise a solo of this style yourself. So the chords in question are E, and then we go C sharp minor to B, and back to E, and to B, and then interestingly, the actual progression before the next section finishes on an F sharp major, which is quite random, but quite cool. So let's take a look at what's going on here. So for the main kind of E chord part, Slash is kind of feeling around his blues scale. So you can go for position 4. You know, that kind of, just E blues scale. Obviously your position 1 as well. Okay, so on that E chord, that's the kind of thing I would do. I would just... So that's me just kind of improvising around that blues scale. You can add in that major third as well, which is really cool, very Slash-like. So he's sort of doing that there, and then it comes to this, sorry, it comes to this part. So that's highlighting the C sharp minor chord to the B chord. So we're going 4th fret on the A string, 2nd fret on D, back to 4 on E, on A, sorry, and then nice tone bend on the D string, release, bit of vibrato, and then we essentially repeat this melodic idea up the octave. So that's the 6th fret of G, 5th fret of B, back to the 6th fret of G, 7th fret, bending up a tone, release, vibrato. So and then once we've done that part, you can kind of just mess around within this shape. We're now in kind of like C sharp minor pentatonic, which sounds super cool. Again, that's kind of what Slash is doing. I'd bargain that he doesn't play this solo the same every time he plays it live. I bet he kind of mixes it up quite a lot, which is why it's good to have some of these ideas and these sort of shapes under your finger. And when it hits back to the E chord, it does this really cool thing. That sort of double stop thing. So what's happening here is I'm sliding up to the 5th fret of B, playing the high E as well, then bringing it down to the 3rd fret, 2nd fret, you hear the high E is still sounding, and then the 2nd fret of G, add the blue note if you want, end up on E. Again, this is just an approximation, but that sort of thing is really cool. So following on from there, it goes back to the B chord where you can do... I'm just doing... kind of B major pentatonic sounding stuff to match up with this B chord, okay? Again, you can kind of think in shapes, or you can kind of think in chords. So I'm visualizing this shape here and thinking, right, how can I play around that? You've got so much mileage with those two boxes there. So once it hits that B chord, something like that, you know, be adventurous and have a bit of fun with it. Then once it hits the E chord again, Slash is now in that position 1 of E minor pentatonic. So it does a kind of classic blues lick, but he ends it. It's a really cool little double stop thing. So that's the second finger sliding up to 14 on D. Then we hit the third finger on 14 on B. And then we slide down a tone. So the 2 notes should still be ringing out like that. So that's sliding down to the 12th fret. And there's another little cool key lick on B that goes something like this. This is the next chord after our part. And it hits the B chord again, and we go. Which is really cool. So that's the 6th fret of G. Bend a semitone release down to the 4th fret of G. Same thing on the D string. So. And then the 4th fret of A. Semitone bend. End up on the B, the 2nd fret of A. And then slide up to the 4th fret of G. And that's where we hit our F sharp chord. And then to build into the next section, you go. The B power chord. And this is that kind of like refrain section where Axl Rose starts saying about being in the jungle and all of that. You know where you are, you're in the jungle, baby. It's kind of like a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of like weird textural things with the lead parts, but there's a main bit that goes. It's essentially like this chromatic thing that's running down from the 7th fret of A. That all the way down to the 2nd fret, so it's just. And it's quite heavily palm muted as well. So then we've got these chromatic power chords that build into the final chorus, so it goes. So that's starting on the 2nd fret of E, down to 1, up to 2, and up to 3. So. And then on the 5th fret, so that's 5, 4, 5, 6, and then into C, C power chord, or you can play a big open C as well if you want to. So then we have another chorus, and remember with the chorus we go. Repeats this a bunch of times. And then finally, we have the ending stabs that sound something like this. Big ending. So we're starting on the E power chord on the 7th fret of A, down to 5, 6 on E, 5 on E, 3 on E. So then open E, then finally 5, 3, open. And that's all on E. And then you can hit a big Hendrix chord if you want to, or you can power chord, or you can, as long as you make the ending big, that's all that matters. There you go. So that covers all of the kind of main guitar parts in Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses. There's a lot to get your teeth into here, so definitely take your time with each section, especially some of the lead stuff. And what this song is really about is just making sure it grooves. So it's quite a groovy part of that. It's got quite a bounce to it. So it's about really kind of nailing that feel. As always, try and play along to the track if you can, even if you slow it down a little bit. Take your time working up to full tempo. But yeah, have fun with that, and I'll see you in the next video.